I almost want to start this video out with a long, drawn-out, I'm not going to swear. Maybe I'll swear later. The Economist has jumped the shark. This story from The Wrap. The Economist apologizes for tweet asking whether transgender people should be sterilized. Wow. Listen. My God, Economist. Now, there's some nuance here, sure, but my God, a tweet like that should never go out. No one should be sterilized. Wow. Listen, we have discussions on this channel sometimes about whether or not it is fair for trans women to compete against biological females. And the reason for this is simply because, in my opinion, when you have transgender scientists saying this, then I defer to them and say, this is an argument you should be having, and it's a big cultural issue. But absolutely, civil rights 100% across the board, no matter what. Every individual is equal in the eyes of, how do I say this? I guess the Lord, right? I'm not a very religious person, but what I mean by that is everyone is deserving of the same equal rights. It doesn't mean we're all equal, because we're not. Some people are taller, some are shorter. Some people are small and they got tiny hands that are good for thieving. Guardians of the Galaxy reference. And some people are taller and they're good at, certain sports. Some people are smarter, some people are stupider, some people are faster. People aren't equal, so we can't really, make things necessarily equal. But what we can do is guarantee that in the eyes of the law and in terms of how our society deals with issues, we respect each and everyone's individual human rights above all else. That being said, my God, The Economist, what the fuck were you thinking with this tweet? The Economist deleted an apology. I'm so sorry for swearing. There's a lot of people, seriously, they hit me up asking me not to swear. The Economist deleted and apologized for a tweet in which the magazine appears to suggest that trans people should be sterilized. They said, "We deleted an earlier tweet which mischaracterized our article on transgender rights in Japan. Here is that article, which remains unchanged," the British magazine said in a tweet tweet Tuesday evening. "The article explores in detail a question that was put to Japan's Supreme Court. Our tweets often use a line from the articles they link to. We were wrong to use the first line of the article out of its context. Sorry," they added in an update Wednesday. I'm sorry. Japan's a very different country from ours, from the United States. And in the West, we uphold individual civil rights. And it's been, I think, over 100 years since we've actually entertained the idea of eugenics publicly. It was actually the progressive movement that was all about eugenics back in the day. And we have since realized why that's insane and wrong. And no matter who you are and what you believe, your bodily integrity is your decision. So for the government to impose stripping away something, reproduction is a natural part of human existence. And no matter what you are, what you believe, I don't think anyone should be allowed to take that away from you. I'm actually 100% against the death penalty. When I talk about my political policy issues, there are two things in which I am extremely adamant about. The first one is my opposition to war and intervention. And yes, I know all about what's going on overseas and the threat we posed from BRICS nations and the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. A lot of these things, okay? I've been on the ground. I've seen some of the ramifications of these issues. But there is a deep philosophical morality ingrained in me that opposes the death penalty. Basically to take away the autonomy of an individual and to make them face that, I believe is 100% wrong. And this falls in line with that. The right of the individual, in my opinion, is paramount, and we must do everything we can to protect the individual. And this, I think, is a tenet of liberal democracy, and it's probably because I grew up here in the U.S. That means if you want to chop your arm off, okay, I think we should do everything we can to help you. I'm a social liberal. I believe we should have programs to assist you and maybe figuring out what the issue is. But there is something, it's called like bodily integrity, identity dysmorphia or something like that. And there are people who feel like there's things on there, like their arm isn't actually their arm. It feels like there's something stuck to their body and they actually cut it off and it provides them relief. There's something wrong there. However, I don't believe the government should come in and take or do anything to you simply because you're suffering from some kind of ailment. This goes without question for anybody who's suffering from gender dysphoria. If you want to make a decision about your life, I am 100% behind you. And I believe the government should guarantee you equal rights under the law. Now we have this situation in which Japan actually, apparently they're saying Japan says transgender people must be sterilized, which in my opinion is absolutely psychotic and terrifyingly authoritarian and should never be permitted. If people want to, do things to their body, it's your body, period. They tweeted, that we deleted this. They said the article explores in detail a question that was put to Japan's Supreme Court. Our tweets often use a line. We read that. I want to point out, I understand what the Economist was trying to do in this capacity. They were trying to, pose the question about what Japan was doing. And this is where we get into a big challenge with the idea of globalism. Japan wants to have some kind of eugenic authoritarian program where if you decide you want to administer hormones or do something to your body, they're going to sterilize you. I'm sure the article is a bit more nuanced than that. Sure, don't get me wrong. How do we, as a liberal democracy that seeks to protect the individual rights of all individuals and guarantee them equal protections under the law in regards to how we enforce the law and our rights, how do we ensure that when you recognize that even one of our, greatest allies, Japan, is, I don't know if it's fair to say greatest allies, but they're an ally of the U.S. How is it, actually, I think they are. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Whatever. The point is, how do we reconcile expanding, international courts and all that when you have countries that are willing to believe something as dangerously psychotic as forced sterilization of their own population? I get it. It's specific, but still, it's terrifying. Reps for The Economist did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the matter. Far from a question from the magazine itself, the tweet linked to an Economist article about a debate currently unfolding in Japan over the issue, which the paper itself labeled the unkindest cut. That's also a weird way to put it. They asked, should transgender people be sterilized? Earlier this year, the Japan Supreme Court decided the answer is yes. My God, that is terrifying. Read the opening of the piece, while also noting shortly after that, human rights groups say demanding irreversible surgery is outrageous. Although several Asian countries, including South Korea, have similar laws, Western countries that once also used to require sterilization, such as Norway, France, and Sweden, no longer do. The original tweet was immediately flagged on Twitter by prominent users who attacked the magazine for asking the question. And now here's the interesting thing. Parker Malloy, right here, Media Matters editor, she has me blocked. Okay, Parker has said ridiculous things about me, but you know what? Principle comes first. I think Parker is a rather out there extreme individual, but I completely agree. I agree with you, Parker. F The Economist, effing sick of this effing garbage. How effing dare they really F them? Media Matters editor Parker Malloy said in a tweet, should literally any group of people be sterilized before being legally recognized? There is absolutely no context where that is an okay question to ask, you genocidal S-weasels. Well, I would refrain from being as outraged. My opinions are rather tepid most of the time, and I'm usually rather calm. But I will say, think before you speak, Economist. My God. I understand they were highlighting a question that was asked of in Japan. But I guess The Economist is British, they said. So if we're Britain, you know what? I'll just put it. Look, Britain's gone crazy. They've gone nuts. The UK, you guys are nuts. I'm sorry. I love you guys, but your country is off the rails. You're losing it, and this is a good example of just not understanding. Whatever. I don't know. This is probably the most outraged I'll ever be by someone tweeting something out. It's far from the first time the magazine has faced criticism over its coverage. Similar bad feelings ensued in 2016 when they reported that the key to a successful marriage was not having daughters. Wow. When I saw that. Who wrote this? Oh, it's John Levine, of course. John's an all right dude. I think he's pretty good. The key to a successful marriage? Not having daughters, they say. And there's a little photo of a dad and his kid. They say data suggests that couples who have sons are more likely to stay together than those that don't. Emily Bobrow looks into why this might be. This, I don't think, is fair to criticize. This is them actually looking at data and highlighting something controversial, which is important. The same is technically true for this article about trans rights. However, framing is important. And in the West, I guess maybe not in the UK, you guys don't respect individual liberties. That's a fact, right? Count Dankula getting convicted of making a joke. I'm pretty sure they do not respect individual liberty. They're concerned about groups that may be offended and they want to arrest people. But here in the United States, at least, I can understand why some Americans are upset by the framing of this question. And that's actually why, I don't even understand why they would open their article with this. You know, maybe say something. I don't know. You know what, man? The issue I have with this is I am no fan of hate speech at all. I recognize the right to free speech. I recognize that the Economist can write what they want to write and they'll get crapped on for it. That's about it. But it gets really crazy, in my opinion, when you're going to start asking this question in a mainstream publication. It's one thing when you have fringe nobodies of what people would call the far right. I don't understand why that necessarily use that kind of a descriptor. But if you have people who are overtly racist, I want to say a bunch of psychotic racist things, I do not believe that belongs in a Western liberal democracy that tries to uphold individual liberties and freedoms for all. I believe you're allowed to say it because we want to uphold individual liberties and freedom for all. That includes you and your right to go say nonsense. And the reality is, when The Economist did this, they were attacked in the public and had to apologize. And that's typically the right way for things to be handled. They're going to be punished in the public for the way they frame things. But I'd like to point out something. I am not overly concerned with these fringe wackaloons to a certain degree, right? First of all, crazy people are going to do crazy things, and you almost can't do anything about it. Seriously. The more you try to put roadblocks in the way, the more things just change. We have to recognize that sometimes crazy people do crazy things, and you know, sometimes doing something is worse than doing nothing. It's true. You know, there's a Streisand effect, for instance. We need to figure out what the right way to handle these things are. It's very difficult. But when it comes to policy in the public and the mainstream, these people aren't involved. They're not running The Economist. This was someone making a stupid mistake because they were trying to highlight something happening in Japan. They had to apologize for it. In my opinion, they shouldn't have asked it. But you have people associated with the far left, in my opinion, people like Parker Malloy, who believe insane things for insane reasons and want to impose insane rules on other people and eschew individual liberties and freedoms. And that, to me, is truly terrifying. While I will see this, and, you know, I think the reason why I and Parker would agree this was wrong of The Economist, we agree it's wrong, but for different reasons. For me, it's because eugenics, in my opinion, is silly and dangerous, but also individual liberties are paramount, and we must protect the individual and their autonomy and their rights. Japan apparently disagrees. Parker is more about, you know, I don't know, fighting Nazis or something, and everyone's a fascist. And this is, in my opinion, the left is more likely to be outraged by this because the group is part of their tribe, right? So here's the kind of the breaking point. There's a lot of people associated with the freedom side of the political battle, liberty, who would say this is wrong because you're violating the rights of an individual, whereas the other side would say this person is part of my tribe. How dare you? And then the question arises when I'll give you a good example. I mean, I'm sure most of you have seen the double standard. The double standard exists. It's prominent. Rashida Tlaib was dragged by many conservatives because her Instagram was following an anti-Semitic Instagram account. It was posting pictures of the Star of David on rats and just horrifying things like that. That to me is extreme and it's offensive. But I recognize the right to post it. By all means, you can be an awful person, and that says to me that maybe I should be concerned about what Rashida Tlaib thinks. And I'm glad we found this out about her, because the hell, if I want to give her more power, she's nuts. However, a lot of people on the left said, no, you can't blame her for following an account. Then PewDiePie happened, and they said, look who PewDiePie follows. This proves it. Yes. In my opinion, when I look at what the mainstream left has become, and I don't mean like most leftists, because I think most people on the left are just not saying anything and they're hiding or they're scared. My friends, for instance, don't want to lose their jobs. I think these tribes, like the people dominating the conversation on the left, it's all about my side, period. If PewDiePie did something wrong, we'll call him out for it, but we'll defend Rashida Tlaib. Principle be damned. No, I'm going to say, I don't like that Rashida Tlaib, as a politician, was following that account. I'm glad she did, though. And PewDiePie was following some people that I don't follow either. And I'd be interested to know what he saw and, why. But I'm not going to make assumptions about his intent in following them, nor Rashida Tlaib's, So I don't really learn anything much from it other than they followed these accounts for some reason. Yeah, whatever. You know what? I'm going to leave it there. Economist, that was, wow, really jumping the shark on this one. But there was nuance. So the nuance being that they were trying to point to Japan and Japan's question. However, we should think before we speak. I'll leave it there. Stick around. I got another video coming up at 1 p.m. I will see you then.